What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Corporate Bartender. Today's episode is a mind blower. We're talking about chatbots and AI and HR, and we are super excited to have the CEO of MeBeBot, Beth White, on the program. If you don't know Beth, you should get on that because she is amazing. Not only does she run a fast-growing tech startup in lovely Austin, Texas, she's been the head of HR for several firms, spent time in the microbreweries of the Northwest, and even worked on a commercial fishing boat in Alaska. This is a relevant topic for all of us in the people space, and it's just a damn fun conversation. So buckle up, TCBers, grab your favorite cocktail, and let's get right on into it with Beth White on today's TCB.
Welcome to Sky Team's The Corporate Bartender. If you work in HR or make people decisions in your organization, this is the place to be. Now pull up a stool, belly up to the bar, and join us for The Corporate Bartender.
All right, well, welcome everybody to the Corporate Bartender, episode 87 on the 19th of May. I say it every time, but 2021 is going by faster than even 2020 did, and I don't know how to process that. I don't know how you guys are doing, but it seems like it's just whizzing by. So I do see some new folks. We always like to welcome new folks and give them the opportunity to say hello. So I will pick a few of you at random, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, not to put anybody on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot right now. So I'm going to start with Victor because he's the first person that I talked to today when he came on. So Victor, just tell us who you are, where you are, what you do, and then tell us one really boring fact about you.
Well, so what I do, in addition to being on the MeBeBot team, I also have two separate consulting companies. One is on HR, consulting on how to recruit better, how to upgrade HR processes so they meet businesses' needs, and another company called Innovation One. And there we assess a company's culture and capability to be innovative using an empirically developed assessment. Before that, this is probably the boring part, I led HR for large global business units of Honeywell and for Medtronic. And the other boring thing about me is I have a daughter who's a comic in Hollywood, and there's nothing more humbling when you're a parent than have one of your children grow up and be a comic in Hollywood.
Yep. Yes.
All secrets revealed.
And it's true. And we chose to invite her to our MeBeBot happy hour one night so that she could make fun of her dad in front of all of us.
That's fantastic.
Yes. Why not?
That's awesome. Well, Victor, since you mentioned innovation and your place in that space, you may want to check out the bartender episode released just yesterday with Lori's boss, Phil McKinney, who is an innovation thought leader dude. And it was just a fantastic episode. Really, really good stuff. Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you and welcome. Dawn, how about you?
Well, hey, hi, everybody. I am on Beth's team. Let's see. I've been in sales all my life, been selling enterprise software forever. Used to have a computer company for like 20 years. So that was a lot of fun. Let's see, boring stuff about, oh, here's a good one. So my husband and I went to Austin for 1 week vacation and stayed for 5 years. And that is how I got to end up knowing Beth. I decided we didn't want to run through all our money because we were partying, you know. It's like, so I met Beth when I went and got a job.
I love it. I love it. Well, welcome, Dawn.
I'm back in Southern California right now, but yeah, I do miss Austin. I'll be glad when we can travel again.
Right on. Well, welcome. Good to see you. Liz, how about you?
Oh, no, on the spot. Hi, I'm an HR journalist with Bethesda Game Studios in Austin, Texas. I've been trying to get through this past year with trying to homeschool a 7-year-old, and then I had a 7-year-old son, and then I had a newborn son right before the pandemic hit. So
good timing. Good timing.
You are essentially Wonder Woman. Let's just say it right now.
Maternity leave is basically like a version of quarantine, so it just kind of rolled in together. As far as let's see,
What's one boring thing about you, Liz?
I can't go boring. I'm gonna have to go fun.
Do it.
Fun.
Buck the system.
Used to work at Disney World, and one of my favorite experiences from there was going to the top of Cinderella's castle, where Tinkerbell flies from. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I had little girls once upon a time, and that was a big deal. That was a really big deal. Well, welcome, Liz. It's good to have another member of the Austin Army here on The Bartender. I'm assuming you're connected to David in some way, or at least you heard about it via David's people. David's like an evangelist now.
Yeah, apparently.
Did you get the word when I sent it out to the HR roundtable, Liz?
I did, and yeah, it was a very warm introduction that made me want to come check it out. Thank you.
It is a fun group, right? They don't turn on you, well, not yet anyway, but they generally don't turn on you.
Well, Liz, we won't turn on you. David, I can't speak for. We may turn on him. Chris Carlin, how about you?
Hello. Let's see. So B, I'm a HR business partner here in Austin as well. Again, also via David. I'm currently with Hippo Insurance. And let's see, something boring about me. Probably the most boring thing is I am not of the work at home revolution folks that jumped at the chance to work from home. I worked from home for years. I was excited to get back to an office. And my boring thing is I actually enjoyed being home during the quarantine and just reading books. I had a lot more time to catch up on reading.
That's fantastic. You got to whittle that pile on the nightstand down, right?
And loved every minute of it. It was wonderful.
That's fantastic. Well, great to meet you. Welcome, Chris. Kevin Campbell, how about you?
Hi there. I'm Kevin Campbell. I'm working with Beth White and the MeBeBot team and doing some sales and marketing work right now. My background's been in software development with some companies like Infor and Oracle in the past. And a lot of people would consider it boring, but I really enjoy marching bands, high school, college marching bands. So.
Yeah.
As a former band geek, I high five you. Right on. Well, welcome, guys. Welcome, everyone.
Is there another Lori? Because I see Lori Freemeyer, but there's another Lori.
And they spell it correctly.
That's right.
Oh, that's Lori's phone.
I'm trying to turn off my phone. I'm in Houston today, so
you could go have happy hour. Oh no, I guess that's far from Austin, but
it is a ways. Usually in Houston, they say, "God, I wish I was in Austin right now."
Yeah, that's a true thing. That is a true thing. Well, welcome everybody. For you new folks, we do have a little social network where we get together and share ideas called the Bartender Network at this web address here, the-corporate-bartender.mn.co. We'll toss that into the chat before we get done here today. And because we have new folks, I get to do my thing. There it is. You can get the app and do it on your phone. It's fantastic. We've got some guests upcoming. We've got a guy called Ira Wolf, whose space is on adaptability, which is a pretty welcome skill set to have during these times. That's going to be on June 2nd. And then on June 19th, Misha Rubin will be here talking about post-pandemic careers. So some fun things to look forward to. But let's get into the news that you can use. Got a couple of articles for you today. This was an HBR that came out this week on how to set up remote employees for success on day one. We've talked a lot about onboarding remote employees and how we've been doing nothing but remote employees for the last big chunk of time. But I thought this was interesting because it just sort of called it out in a nice, easy to digest format. You know, things that we know we should do that we just don't always do. We didn't even do when we were setting up onboarding for people in person.
Isn't that the truth?
Right?
We should probably do this for people in person too.
I have started more than one job where I showed up on day one and did not have a computer.
Right.
Right. And so it's things like that, right? It's identifying a dedicated onboarding liaison, somebody that person can talk to, give them a way to create a connection with the company before the first day. I've been involved in some organizations that have done a really good job of that. They send you a little welcome basket and some tchotchkes, and you can send new employees old marketing things from 3 years ago. They don't care, right? It's cool. They get a company logo shirt, even if it's the last logo or the wrong colors, doesn't matter. Building strong one-on-one relationships. And the one that I thought that really stood out for me was explaining the culture, making the unspoken assumptions explicit. And this is a thing that Morag says all the time, right? She talks about making the implicit explicit, and it's just a way that we take a lot of things for granted, and new people just don't know. So this article recommends that you designate a culture buddy, which I thought was kind of cool. And then the last thing that they mentioned was helping an individual connect the work that they do day to day to the broader mission, vision, and goals, right? This is that getting a connection to what the company's about, tying it to what we actually do. It's that line of sight from frontline employee to achieving the mission of the company. So I thought that was cool. And then related to our topic today, this was an article that came out actually in 2019, but I thought it was relevant. These are 10 HR trends in the age of AI. And a lot of the things in this article were relevant. This is a Forbes article, and I'll get the links over on the network here in the next day or so. But of those 10, I won't go through them all, but there were some interesting ones. New jobs will be created using artificial intelligence. And I think that's evidence because that's what Beth's company does. I don't know that this job existed 5 years ago or even 3 years ago. Beth, when did this start to become a thing, the chatbot revolution?
Well, when I started getting wind of chatbots, I think would have to be probably 4 to 5 years ago when I recognized them on consumer-facing websites. Like, frankly, my bank started to utilize chatbots as a help, and I saw it also on AT&T's website. So I think when we all started to get kind of familiar with it, in a more widespread manner, but the history of chatbots go back to, the Turing test in the 1940s. So I have taught a course on how to leverage AI for HR in the past. And one of the things we talk about is the history of AI and how long it has been around. One of the first bots was actually a mental health chatbot. Pretty fascinating. Now, they weren't consumer friendly. They were more a lot of programmer code back then in the 40s and 50s. However, they were onto something. They were working under that premise of how do we teach a machine to think and learn? And that's the use case they started with was this consulting kind of bot to help in therapy. So it's pretty fascinating.
That is pretty fascinating. Yeah, and we'll get deeper into that when we break into our conversation. But there were some other things on there that I thought were pretty cool. The new jobs thing, skills-based hiring gaining traction. We were talking about this not too long ago. Just the notion of AI in recruitment and the biases therein. But that aside, right, focusing more on skill versus anything else, which I thought was interesting. One of the other things that I think is we're starting to see play out, and this played out in an article that I believe who was it that posted it today on the network? It was on people being willing to trade working from home for a $30,000 increase.
Yeah, I put that out there. Isn't that interesting?
That's fascinating, right? And the trend here in this article was employees will trade money for meaning at work. And I thought that article that you posted, David, was just like a real-time example of that, right? And $30,000 is not anything to be sneezed at most organizational levels, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think the conversation right now, in fact, earlier in that first posting you came up with on setting up the remote employee for success in day one and culture, I think the topic of how do you maintain culture if you maintain a remote workforce, right? What does that look and feel like, right? Because you lose kind of a tangibility associated with that. And then just the whole notion of where do I gain satisfaction from a performance and retention standpoint. All those things I think are just out there in the conversation of business leaders and HR leaders right now. It's fascinating to see how this plays out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The last one here that I'll bring up is the HR call to action. And it's another little tagline here that uses two of Morag's favorite taglines. It's preparing for the future of work is a team sport. Right. Morag wrote a book called The Future Proof Workplace that talks all about that. And we always talk about work being a team sport, and it is, right? We don't high perform alone. We just can't. So 2 little tidbits there for you. Some goodness for you to go read after we talk today. But let's get on into our conversation with Beth. Hey, Beth. Say hey to everybody.
Well, hello, everybody. It's good to see all these people out there. Oh, I love the applause.
So, Beth, you are the CEO of MeBeBot, but this isn't your first rodeo. You've done things before this. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your journey that got you here to be running this organization, including any weirdo jobs that you might have had along your way.
I know. I told Eric about a couple weirdo jobs I had, and I think he's like, yes, you've got to talk about some of those. So in my mind, you learn what you want to do from learning what you don't want to do, right? And so you've got to try some things before you get it right. So, I am like many people, went to college, wasn't quite sure what I was doing when I graduated, and I really fell into HR. But before I fell into HR, ended up having a lot of student loan debt. So I worked on a fishing boat up in Alaska. So that was one of my first kind of weirdo jobs,
Like Beth, like a deadliest catch kind of fishing boat.
It's that show came out like after I was off the boats, and everybody thinks of that. And those boats that those folks are on, those crabber boats, are incredibly dangerous. I worked on these ginormous factory trawler fishing boats that, frankly, I'm not as proud of because they were the ones that kind of did a little bit of overfishing in the Bering Sea of Alaska. But if you're eating a McDonald's fish fillet, 9 times out of 10 it came from, and this boat is still working, Alaska Ocean Seafoods. And so they're still working out of Dutch Harbor, Alaska, and based in Anacortes, Washington, and helped me pay off my student loans. So you have to have some of that in the back pocket, right?
I think you are our first professional fisher person to be on the bartender.
Yes. And it's one of those things that you asked me, what's a job I would, or someone asked me, what's a job I would never want to do again? And I always mention that one.
That one. So how did you get from fish to HR?
Well, it's like everyone kind of, I don't know about many of you out there, but in my experience being in HR, most folks fell into it in some other way. I was a people person, and I was working in a microbrewery in Oregon called McMiniman's Pubs and Breweries. Some of you who are out on the West Coast might know of McMiniman's, right?
I know McMiniman's.
Yeah, they're great. they actually still to this day one of my most favorite jobs. And wasn't sure if I was going to go to law school, what I was doing, waiting at tables, and they said, "Hey, we're looking for someone to come in the office and help hire other bartenders, waiters, servers, the whole staff." And I thought, well, why not? I can't, I could see myself learning in a new trade. And so next thing you know, that was the beginning of my HR career. And everybody who has ever worked in the service industry probably knows some of your craziest HR stories probably come out of the service industry, and especially restaurants. So
let's see, a bunch of early 20-somethings and an alcohol-fueled culture. What could go wrong?
Working a lot of nights and weekends.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The employee relations issues. Oh,
I don't want to work with Beth anymore because we broke up. Transfer me.
And Eric brought that one up, and I said, that actually happened many a times. Yeah, so there's that fine balance with, the drug alcohol thing, and when you're promoting alcohol all day, so, but it was a great fun experience. And the best thing that they taught me is you take care of your people and they will be incredibly loyal to you. So Mike and Brian McMiniman, they put in a amazing culture. I mean, this was the service industry 20 years ago where they had benefits and 401k and, all sorts of great stuff. They still have people working for them 20 years, waiting tables because they treat them so well. So I think that got me on a roll of like, okay, I like HR when you can really provide people these awesome experiences, but it rains a lot in Portland. So I moved to Texas. I had to get some sunshine in my system, and I ended up in Austin and worked for a number of different companies, from Whole Foods Market and their corporate offices when they were going through a lot of acquisitions. Worked for CSC. That was my experience working for a ginormous consulting firm. I ran a benefits call center. At the time, it was called a call center because that's all people did was call you, right?
On the phone.
Yeah. And then I went on to work for a number of different software companies and .com of the era that went from, 0 employees to 500 and IPO'd, and then was part of the .com bust. And so we had...
I was there.
Shut the doors and unfortunately lay everybody off, which was horrible because you're doing that and then you're laying yourself off, so yeah. I've been through a lot of those experiences as well. So, but, ended up, I guess falling into this role of, MeBeBot when, like you were bringing up at the beginning, I fell in love with chatbots. I saw them as a consumer and I thought, wow, this could be so impactful for the world of HR. And how do we leverage this new type of technology inside businesses to help employees, to support them and create a journey and a path for them like we experience as consumers with some of the awesome brands out there.
Right on. Well, it's interesting, right? We talk about AI a lot here on this show, and we've been talking about its presence in HR and some of the pitfalls that come with it, right? The ethical dilemmas, the bias-based dilemmas. When you're out there talking to potential customers, do you get any of that sort of pushback on, well, this, I don't know. I don't know if we're ready for that, or...
Yes. I mean, it's good for people to ask those questions, and they should, because this is technology that is powerful. But at the same time, I think when you uncover some of the myths that are out there, humans are training the machines still today. The machines are not just acting on their own. So what better people to train machines how to be ethically responsible than people that come from an HR background? That's my theory. I mean, we know how to look at the world through a different lens and to make sure that we're considering a lot of different facts when you are going about the testing training of machine learning. However, when I put forward this technology, like, look, this is all about automation. This is helping to take some of the what I call low-hanging fruit tasks off your plate so that we can help elevate the role of HR to have time to focus on more of the strategic work. That's what really resonates with people. I don't know how many of you are out there, but no matter what level and role you get to in an HR organization, you are still going to get people sending you these types of questions that take up valuable time from your day. And most of the questions are similar, no matter if you're at Whole Foods or at CSC. They're the same types of questions that employees ask from company to company. So isn't there a way that we can help, pull together technology that services an employee in a manner where now, we brought it up at the beginning of this, how do we support this remote onboarding process and hybrid work? Well, give employees technologies and tools to do that, to help them, especially when we're in this global workforce now, and you've got people, in India and in the UK and in South America. You have to have this 24/7 mentality of support.
Yeah. It's interesting, having grown up in HR and technology companies, they're largely small HR teams, and you get to deal with a lot of the frontline questions. What's our vacation policy? How long do I have to be here before I start accruing days? When do I get my benefits? Right? Just very basic blocking and tackling stuff that as HR practitioners, we complain about all the time. It's like, oh, why do I have to deal with so much of these bullshit questions every day, all day long? But I can also see the flip side of that with HR people, because I saw it when we made the shift from sort of the generalist stroke personnel model to the business partner model. Once things change, we start to feel like we could be obsolete, and we start to be resistant to the technology. Do you ever see that from some of your HR folks inside your client companies, where as the chatbots become more ingrained into the organization and the machine learning starts to happen, they get better at their jobs, that HR people start to push back? They get scared?
To be honest with you, no. I mean, most of the people are embracing the technology to see it as a way that frees up some of their time to be more strategic. But the one thing we do, Eric, that's a little different is we have a dashboard on our product that shows usage. So we can actually give the HR professionals visibility to the questions being asked by employees, meaning how many questions are being asked per day, what kinds of questions are being asked, from what geographic location. And when you can provide people that information, that's really what it is. I think it's more curious and frankly needing to know what is happening out there, what's the pulse of the organization. And if you can display it in a format that allows them to continue to work on tasks that may help, again, in other areas of the business, for example, D&I initiatives and compensation strategies and, new ways to onboard employees during remote work. I mean, that's probably a better usage of their time. But then at the same time, seeing the dashboard, they get the comfort that the employees' questions are being addressed. And if there is one area that has a lot of different types of questions surfacing, our team actually brings those forward, like, hey, there's a lot of people asking about, logging into the payroll system. Is there something wrong? Is a system down? Is there something going on?
Right.
So that's kind of what I think people need to make sure that they're not losing track of. And so as long as the visibility is still there, I think it's a control issue too. They're happy to maybe let go of it a little bit, and I don't think we were ever hired in HR to be customer service people. I think there were a lot of other functions that we were hired for that, frankly, deserve more attention and time.
Absolutely. Don't disagree with you at all. And thanks for that story. Lori's asked a question. She wants to know if you can give us an example, Beth, of how the machine learning works in this context of HR chatbots.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So first, I'll probably just back up and, just for make sure everybody has some context of like what is a chatbot and how does that part of natural language processing work. So a chatbot is designed to be a user interface that can live in tools like our solution installs in Slack as an app or in Microsoft Teams. And there's also a web application that can be inside SharePoint pages so that employees can ask in what we call natural language. So meaning they type a full sentence. It's not designed to be like a Google search. It's very similar to how, if you've used Siri or Alexa, those technologies work. And so they're based on...
Does yours have a name? Your chatbot, does it have a name?
It's MeBeBot, that's the name. We had gone down a path of like coming up with something different, but the reason it's called MeBeBot is like MeBeBot lets me be efficient, lets me be productive. It's all about the individual, because again, we're really wanting to personalize this experience for the employee and make it their friend, right, to help them. So when they ask these questions in natural language, meaning how do I get a new insurance card, for example, the way the machine is learning is it's designed to pick up what they call like weighted averages in the words. So if you're a linguist person, if you like language, this is technology you would probably love, because it uses a lot of those factors to determine the verb and the intent of the what they call an utterance, what it's all about. And then because we've curated a library of all the types of frequently asked questions common to businesses, there's essentially an AI, the AI mechanism is the fast matching of what this utterance is to intents that are in our system. Now, the machine learning part comes in when an employee may get the wrong answer. It's not, the machine is producing a different answer that's not quite right. And so then we apply what we call the human supervised learning to say, nope, this is the right answer that you need to produce for that specific question. So there's times, again, the machine learning part comes in where employees ask questions about perhaps a new benefit that's not certain in our knowledge base yet. We produce that new topic back to the business user and say, hey, did you just start offering something different and new for employees? You know, we probably need to add this into the solution. So we continue to kind of make it better and enrich the solution. But that's how the machine learning process goes.
Do you capitalize? Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Do you capitalize on the commonalities across all customers by building this sort of large aggregate database as well?
Yeah, that's actually part of the secret sauce of MeBeBot is, you know, we have this global, we call it our customer portal of this content. However, when employees are asking questions at the multiple employer sites, each company has their own tenant or instance of their portal. However, the machine training is benefited by almost like a crowdsourced approach. So all these utterances are coming in, utilized, and then they're thrown out, but they train this AI data model on the back end. So the more we ingest from a multitude of different types of customers and parts of the globe, and you know, the stronger the AI accuracy is on the answers that are produced.
That's awesome. Thank you. David, you had your hand up for a question.
Yeah, and I just typed it in the chat also. It had to do with, back to your question, so it's called MeBeBot, right? But I assume it can be branded internally. And do companies do that where they make it, name it something that is unique to the way they provide HR services?
Or they just call it Ask Ruby.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, you know, it's great that you asked that, David, because when we first began, we really opened it up to that concept of letting the employer brand it. And then between Microsoft and Slack, because those are our two kind of preferred channels of where MeBeBot installs, they were starting to change their methodologies of allowing bots to be renamed. However, they've come back around, and now for Microsoft Teams, we can now allow a company to utilize essentially MeBeBot in a white label form, if that makes sense. So they are able to brand it, because there's nothing more than we would want than for companies to embrace MeBeBot if they want to call it, like you, David, probably know the story of E2 Open. They were calling it Ava, E2 Open's virtual assistant.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, and then they had, you know, able to do their whole campaigning around that and produce marketing materials to kind of launch this whole branding initiative within their business. Now they've since reverted back to MeBeBot over time. It's mostly because of the Teams and global use case that they now offer. But, you know, at any point in time, if customers do want to rename the bot, we can allow them to do that now, because the technology is kind of caught up with what the business users want.
That's awesome. So you mentioned E2 Open. Can you tell us about another sort of customer success story, a big win for MeBeBot?
Yeah, some of the folks in Austin might know of a company called Epicor Software. They were one of our customers that we call our customers innovation partners, because we really do believe there's this power of, you know, building technology with your your partner, your customer. And so we happen to be signing contracts with Epicor in January of 2020, and we all know what that kind of time frame was like. And then fast forward a couple months, and we launched MeBeBot in 2 months to their global workforce of over 4,400 employees in 30 countries, right when they were moving all their employees home, for remote work. And they did not have a culture before, the pandemic of remote work at all. I mean, it was very much, here is our office space, and we really want to promote that. So it was quite a shift. And so they helped us come up with a lot of content we built into our solution around COVID, health tip of the week we started to offer up as an option, and questions around wellness and telemedicine, and even safe return to work policies. So there's been a lot of need to really expand the knowledge base to support the types of questions employees have during all these changes. And so they were pretty instrumental in us understanding that, and really giving us a visual of some of the challenges that they were encountering, so that we understood how to better support them.
Nice. So how easy is it to update the system? Is this a thing that gets done perpetually? Is it done on an interval basis? How does that work?
It is designed for a business user in HR, IT, internal comms, facilities. Those are all the types of people that come into the MeBeBot admin portal. For them to update it every day if they want, and every minute. We want the business users to control and edit the content as frequently as it changes. It's the way to make sure that the consistent communications are being provided to employees. And we even initiated a new feature, I believe it was last fall, before benefits open enrollment, to allow companies to schedule answers to go live on a particular date and time. Those of you who worked out in benefit world for so long know that January 1 is that date where all your benefits are going to change, and you better be ready for that person who needs to go pick up their prescription at the pharmacy on that January 1st date or 2nd date, and you changed insurance vendors and they don't know the new information, right? And so this feature and functionality allows for that. So
I love when you say that. I watch all the HR people's faces just start nodding, and they laugh.
Yes. Oh, it's painful.
They're like open enrollment. They get PTSD over open enrollment.
And the mantra is, doesn't anyone read anything?
No, they don't. They read nothing.
No. Yeah. And it's like they forgot anything they knew about everything. And now they're like, everything's changed. And, to be fair to employees, I don't know about you all, I was overwhelmed last year. I mean, I could only absorb so much information, and, change was happening around us constantly. And so there gets to be this threshold. And I know that, if people are asking more questions, it's because, there's a lot of anxiety, there's, uncertainty, there's, again, how much you can retain in a time of constant stress, right? Like the pandemic has brought a lot of individuals.
For sure. Well, I want to make sure that I leave a minute or two to ask Evans Mayhew. He's the guy that shined the light on AI for us here in this group. And he actually runs an online learning portal about remaining relevant in the age of automation, right? So that's a germane topic to this one. So I wanted to make sure that Evans had the opportunity to ask anything that was burning in his brain as he's listening to you talk, Beth.
Oh, thanks, Eric. Yeah, you got to bear with me. So far it's Wednesday, and I feel like it's been 3 months this week. It's been a brutal week. First, Beth, pleasure to meet you. Have you read The Age of Intent by P.V. Cannon by any chance?
No, I haven't, but you'll have to put that in the chat.
Oh,
so
you're gonna totally dig that. So if you go back to Tom Friedman, when he was doing the whole globalization jam, he did Lexus and the Olive Tree, The World is Flat, on and on. So when he did The World is Flat, he started to go to call centers in India and start to explore those environments. And so you had large call centers in different sections. They had folks trained to speak in different American accents. So the South, Chicago, Boston, etc. And so Friedman went back recently, and that company has radically changed. And those call centers are virtually empty. And now they're running chatbots. And what you described was precisely the methodology that they're using there with regards to machine learning. So they're having a handful of human customer service agents try to handle, they have the chatbots handle it until it can't handle it any further. And so then what they're trying to do is they're trying to go back and try to determine the intent behind the conversation, where did things break down, and then try to get the chatbot developed accordingly so it can handle it better next time, and then just go further down the path. So I guess one of the things that I've been seeing is that COVID-19 has been a massive accelerant in terms of the adoption of automation. So it's done more for digital transformation in 1 year than was planned for a 5-year arc. So where do you see the adoption of chatbots going in the next 5 years?
Well, according to, analysts like Deloitte and Gartner and Accenture, they're writing reports on this all the time. They say you may have 25% of all organizations will have a digital assistant or virtual assistant in their ecosystem that they're working with within the next 2 years. So the RPA, or robotic process automation, has been happening for a while, and some of you may or may not know of it. You may not even know it's happening, but it's basically like bots triggering other bots to do tasks. Now, I think what's really advanced, where we are with MeBeBot and natural language processing and chatbots in that sense, has been consumer tools like Alexa and Siri, right? Mm-hmm. So I see things, the behind the, I call them the behind the scenes bots that are doing functional tasks. I see that's going to get more and more ingrained, and it's already happening. The conversational AI chatbots, that's the direction we're taking, where right now, today, there's a lot of intent in what question does an employee have, and we serve an answer. We also serve up some related topics, but we are really on a fast path to do more conversational AI flows. And this is when things get a lot more fun. If you ask me, okay, let's give the good HR scenario that I love, leave of absences, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how many of you have done the leave of absence? Work is hard, right? And how can we help an employee walk through a leave of absence flow in a conversational way with an AI chatbot? And so that's the next foray that we're going down the path, is to really build out this more, open enrollment. We were just talking about it. Why, open enrollment, what's it all about? Do you want to change your benefits or not? Well, I don't know. Do you want to see what new benefits are offered? I mean, there are a lot of yes, no kind of statements. And if we can build those into great conversational AI flows, will really help employees, will help out the processes in business. And we'll see that in more areas than in HR. Like, think about I call it the poor folks in accounting and finance. I mean, they have their issues to deal with too. Procurement, who wants to do a purchase order? Nobody, right? And that's always a nightmare process. So how can you serve up? So we'll start to see them in these conversational flows, where I think I love to see more opportunity, and it's coming, but I do believe this is the area where you have to put the asterisk that it must be used with caution, is in predictive analytics and insights, which is how can we take this data that we're capturing from these interactions, if we are capturing interactions in a way that we can start to apply algorithms to show some behavior patterns within people. So example is, I know IBM has played with this technology. Watson's their smart brain. And how do you predict turnover before it happens, right? Mm-hmm. How do you predict flight risk in employees before they actually leave a company? And so if you're IBM, you've got a ton of data about your people. A lot of the people have been there a long time, and they likely have a lot of their fields in their HCM system actually filled out. So they probably know what college they went to. They might have entered that in, what years of experience they have. They might know their promotion history, the history of what their percentage merit increase was year to year, if they had a lot of changes in bosses between a given time frame, and they're applying the algorithm to determine whether or not an employee might be a flight risk, if perhaps they haven't gotten a raise for a while, they didn't have a promotion, and they've been absent from work quite a bit. So this is the direction that things are moving, into perhaps as soon as 5 years,
Wow.
Sure. And my thing is, I'm no Luddite, so I've been in tech for a very long time, but I also understand human nature, and I understand how corporations work. And this is a march that's not going to stop. It's just not, for myriad reasons. But I guess my question, and this is a question I always like to ask when it comes to saying we're freeing up someone from mundane tasks in order to move to more strategic tasks or more creative tasks. My question is, isn't that predicated upon the existence of an organizational culture that wants to hear from you on those fronts at all? So a lot of places simply don't, but so now you've freed them up from doing what they were paid to do, and now they're invited to do creative and strategic, but leadership doesn't really give a rip. And so how might that be handled?
Yeah, that's a toughie because that has to come from inside the culture. You have to have a culture that promotes, we hear a lot about it in all the HR publications, upskilling, right. Are you doing enough to upskill your people? So, frankly, a lot of the customers that MeBeBot work with, they are on the best places to work list. Mm-hmm. They've embraced a culture where the career development of their people is essential and important. They know that technology can enable not only their own customers' experiences, but they want to flip that model onto their own employee experience. Sure. Those are more of the they're almost more highly evolved or but they're also the high performing companies, right? So there should not be a secret that if you treat your customers well and you have a great customer experience, and then you flip it back to your own employees too. Well, I know people don't leave companies, like we started this conversation today with David's article. A lot of times they're not leaving over pay or even benefits. It's mostly because they don't have opportunities for growth, and they don't have opportunities to learn more. I know when I used to do those exit surveys, that's what it came down to. And I hope people do embrace more internal tools and solutions to help them, really advance employees, or they will be a revolving door. I mean, it is going to happen. I mean, turnover, right now I believe that it's 2.7 years is the average turnover. Well, wow. I'm a Gen Xer, but the millennials have no patience for you. You don't help me get somewhere. I'm just going to go somewhere else, And it's even worse in the tech industry. It's even hotter turnover. So, I think that it has to be starting at the top, like we all say. It has to be that CEO, level initiative that really drives this whole thing.
And I hope you take that question in the spirit in which it was intended.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think a lot about it because it isn't, this technology is not right for everybody yet, and the people that understand that, again, people weren't hired to just be a call center in HR. You're hired to put together strategic plans for the business and to, maybe handle escalated issues and employee relations, sensitive things that are happening in the organization that you never can tell anybody about that took up half your day, right? So that's what the time would be better spent doing, right?
Awesome. Awesome. Lori, you had a question.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to hog the mic.
Oh, sorry, Lori. Go ahead, Evans.
Real quick, but no, never mind. It's a big one. It's about empathy and shepherding the ML process and asking how do you start to steer towards empathy. So if you have time towards the end, we can talk about that.
Okay. All right.
Well, and that's kind of in line with where I was going. And actually your last comment, Beth, about some of those sort of higher order functions of HR, because it's ingrained in us about confidentiality and about specific unique circumstances, and there is not one size fits all for a lot of situations, and it made me think of that with the leave of absence conversation. And people may or may not feel comfortable just typing in the diagnosis of the thing that they've got that is necessitating the leave, or they'll refuse to disclose because they are hypersensitive to those confidential issues. And so, that's one example. Others are harassment, seeing Chuck, asking the, predictive types of things where what's the trigger to stop the bot and introduce the human? Because, if we're tracking data and there's machine learning, you don't want people's personal medical histories as part of some record that can be disclosed. So I'm just thinking through the
or subpoenaed.
It's subpoenaed, exactly, right? And then you terminated that person. Well, I was just interacting with the system, telling them that I was XYZ, and then lo and behold, I'm let go in the RIF or for whatever. So, I'm just kind of thinking down that devil's advocate path. How do you incorporate that into this design?
Yep. Great question. So first of all, I think there is an employment attorney on the call somewhere out there, right? Is that you, Chuck? Okay, great. Yeah. And
this technology. Thank you.
Yeah. And, one of the first things I always think of is, the use of computer policy, right? When you come to work for an employer, you are saying anything you do on this laptop is computer property. And that's one of the things that the first time you interact with MeBeBot, it actually will say, things like this is a tool being provided to help you. Please don't share any confidential information. This is just here for questions and answers. So that's how we kind of put this kind of disclosure out there. But at the end of the day, the employers that are working with us, that are customers, they know that, we're kind of like under the guise of the whole use of computer type of policy. How many of you had to fire people for things that they were using their computers for that weren't appropriate, right? And it happens. And
no, it's not in Chuck's book either. There's nothing about that.
Right. Oh gosh, I think we all have the stories, right? And let's be real. IT monitoring software on computers has been there for a long time. That's how I learned that a whole new group of employees that were from France didn't know they couldn't look at porn at work, when I was at one of my
jobs. Is it even porn in France? I don't think so.
They were like, what? You can't look at this at the workplace? I'm like, no. So that was 20 years ago. Maybe things have changed. I don't know. But I didn't know. How would I know that in HR? But somebody in IT had to tell us because they were hitting IP sites, right? IP addresses, right? Mm-hmm. So, but today we take an approach of a crawl, walk, run. Okay, so today MeBeBot has more of an anonymous view of an employee. So when an employee asks a question, they come to us as a code. So we don't know who they are, where they self-select where they live, but right now they are anonymous to us. And I say right now because we do have a path to getting to integrating to back-end systems and allowing the person, if they want to opt into a private conversation with MeBeBot to serve up, for example, a paycheck stub from an ADP system, they would be able to do that. But Today, the technology is designed, ask a question, get an answer, non-identifiable code, and it is question answer basis. And again, we put out some disclosures at the beginning so that they know, you are using a company property solution. We also made a very conscious choice, to your point about escalating issues. If I'm an employee and I ask, like, what's our maternity leave policy? But I don't want anybody to know that I'm pregnant, yet. And maybe I didn't get the details that I really wanted to get from that interaction with MeBeBot. I don't want it to automatically generate a ticket to HR. No,
Right.
because I'm not ready
about being knocked up.
Yeah,
right?
so, exactly.
Especially if it happened a week after sales conference. That's a bad thing.
Oh my God. I guess we've all heard those stories too, right?
Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah. Those sales reward trips, I don't know. Right?
President's Club. Woo! Now everybody's pregnant. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we've made some choices along the way to make sure that there's definitely points in time that people can act to escalate and get an answer to a question. But we spend time thinking about this, and we work with our customers to ensure that we meet their guidelines. Now, question like harassment, we have a harassment question and answer in our database. It simply says, like, any type, we reiterate, like, the policy for harassment, like any type of harassment is not tolerated. Please contact HR immediately. If you want a list of your HR business partners, here it is, and that's how we handle that type of topic.
So the system's not going to pop out a note to Lori to say, hey, be on the lookout for Chuck. He's asking all sorts of dodgy questions about sexual harassment. As in, hypothetically, if somebody were to have done this, what might happen to them?
Or if you get a lot of questions about a single person or a single department or a single facility, does that trigger some responsibility on the part of the organization to lean in further? And so I'm curious about this predictive technology. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And to that point, that's where it's kind of going. Once you start to identify the individual, and then you can know where they live, meaning they, Active Directory, when an IT department sets up a new hire, they put in the employee, where they live, what business unit they're in, who their manager is, all that good stuff. Well, if you are able to see that there's a pattern of several people asking about harassment that happen to all work for one particular manager, what do you do? Right. So these are hot topics, and that's why we are on a crawl, walk, run approach, because we work with our business partners, our customers, to really determine what is the best approach to take on these. And, we talk to attorneys as well, to understand where in the letter of the law we are. And again, today we're a knowledge base, a content, and we're answering specific questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Oh, I love it. This has been awesome. Beth, I want to be mindful of everybody's time because we're coming up on the hour here. Guys, any other questions for Beth before we transition back into our end of show routine? Around. One once. Going twice. All right. Big ups for Beth for being here today. It's been awesome. I think we could have another hour-long conversation, especially down the tangent that was headed. What is the MeBeBot of 5 years from now? Right. I think when you get to that run stage of your crawl, walk, run approach, how different will that be from this management of a knowledge base, right? How different will that be when the system is now making decisions, even if they're very elementary decisions, but making decisions nonetheless?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just to put thoughts into your minds, there is easy ways to get started on a path to leveraging AI in your organizations. It doesn't have to be all scary and creepy. It's not going to, robots are not going to take over your jobs. Deloitte, Chris Havrillo, one of the analysts from Deloitte, I love her. She's amazing. She coined a term called, as in her team, called the super team. And it's about how do you combine the machine and the people to really be, a new superpower. And I just want everybody to kind of think about that, because I don't think one happens without the other. The design of this and other solutions like in AI are not to replace people's jobs, but to, again, streamline operations so we can be more efficient, be more productive, be more supportive of our people, right, for the different world of work that we live in.
Excellent. I would love to chat with you about that, to talk about Centaur systems that Kasparov originally put forth. And Kevin Roos just wrote a new book called Future Proof, talking about the failure of Centaur systems. Beth, I would love to chat with you about all that.
Yeah. There's some other ones that I could add to your reading list too. One of the analysts from Willis Wyatt Watson, it's the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and it's a very fascinating book as well. And I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Klaus Schwab?
No, it's not him. Oh goodness. I'll come up with it, of course, after this call, and I'll share.
That's all right. You let us know. We'll make sure everybody gets a hold of it. Yeah, that was awesome, Beth. How do we find you? If anybody here on the network, on the call today, or listening to it in the future decides, I need to get a hold of Beth at MeBeBot, where do we find you?
Yeah, I'll put my email address in the chat, and then of course we've got Dawn and Victor and Kevin out here from our team, and we can all be reached from our company website. We have a pretty active presence on LinkedIn. We like to share a lot of interesting articles. Victor helps us write a lot of amazing content and blogs, and so you can find us on LinkedIn at MeBeBot.com as well. So please, even if you're just curious and you want to just see a demo, we'll be happy to walk you through the solution.
I love it. Well, Beth, thank you so much for being here today. Guys, let's give her another round of applause because she deserves it.
Thank you.
All right, let's do our funny things, our good things, our silly cocktail, and let's go to dinner, shall we? Today's big funny things. Funny thing number one. Here we go. COVID. Dracula's castle in Romania offers tourists vaccine. Yeah, I'm not falling for this one.
Oh.
Okay, so wait, you guys, I have to chirp in here. The company I used to work with, OSF, we used to do like a Days of Excellence. And so I've actually been to Dracula's castle in Romania, probably about a half a dozen times.
You left with all the blood you went in with, did you, Dawn?
Hey, let me tell you what, it is this huge castle, and they have done a really good job on showing a lot of the old contraptions for torture and their weapons.
Good family fun. Family fun.
Actually amazing, and I am not surprised that they're offering them to actually get out there. And it's Vlad the Impaler.
The Impaler, yeah.
I have me and him together. It's really funny.
There's no place I'd rather get my vaccine than the home of Vlad the Impaler. And on that note, from the CDC's guidance this week, finally, we can get back to the way things were. This just made me laugh. Tears, literal tears, it says. This is a text exchange between somebody in Colorado. Hey, Cameron, it's Cole. We spoke at the bar last night and you gave me your number. Hey, sorry, dude, this isn't Cameron. She was either drunk or she gave you the wrong number. Damn, that hurts. 4 months later. Hey, it's Cameron from the group project. Did you add a bibliography? Oh! Sorry, Cole. And I'm just gonna leave this one right here for you to look at. Can you all believe I got a picture with a pigeon?
Oh.
And my favorite funny thing, I'm not even gonna say it. I'm just gonna put it up here. This is for Laurel.
Oh, God. All right, sir.
That's great.
Hard to leave me speechless.
Yeah, this is why some people need to continue to work remote.
Hit the nail on the head there, David. All right, today's good feel story. This is from the Iowa Cubs, a minor league baseball club, and their owner, a Mr. Gartner. He is 82 years old. The company has essentially been on hiatus for 604 days, and they kept every employee on the payroll, full pay, full benefits. It cost him $4 million. And the 82-year-old Mr. Gartner said, I just tried to keep things in perspectives. They needed the money more than I did.
Wow. That's incredible.
I thought that was pretty awesome. Lori says he's a great guy. Lori, do you know him? Of course she does. Awesome. So today's semi-quarantine cocktail, its work is literally killing people. This is a riff on the Pisco Sour, and it's on some WHO information that came out this week. Long working hours are killing hundreds of thousands of people a year, says the WHO. You're going to need a little bit of Pisco. The International Labor Organization estimated that in 2016, some 745,000 people died as a result of having worked at least 55 hours a week.
Dang.
Little bit of lime juice. People that did that had a estimated 35% higher risk of a stroke. Little lemon juice. Guys, this was a pre-pandemic research project. Little simple syrup. So yeah, it's worse now. An egg white. Yeah. So unplug, hang out, watch some TCB and chill. Top it with a little Angostura bitters, and then go watch that Phil McKinney episode because it's a great one. Guys, thank you so much for being here today. Wednesdays are my favorite days, and you guys are my favorite people. I love each and every one of you. We'll see you next week. Thanks again to Beth for being here. You're
Thanks,
awesome.
Eric and
You guys
Lori.
are all awesome.
Guys,
Thank you.
a lot of fun.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you had a good time and learned a thing or two at today's happy hour, please share it with your friends. If you want to join our tribe, head on over to skyeteam.cloud/TCB or email us at info@skyeteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again, and remember, you've always got friends at the Corporate Bartender.